how do we leverage upon all these technologies I showed earlier to create simple consumable services? So like what you can see, broad consensus from our study says that most of the CSPs look at these strategies into three blocks. Strategy number one is move from being a CSP to a DSP. That is, from being a communication service provider to a digital service provider. And that means digitizing the complete omni-channel presence, digitize the services, and offer simplified offerings to the marketplace. Number two, dramatic cost reduction. Reinvent processes, cloudify the network, cloudify IT, put them all together and reduce cost. And block number three, which is the interesting one, which is platform. Emerge as a platform provider, and which means get the ecosystems together. And when I say ecosystem, it's a combination of CSP, partners, the customer, and put them all together and create a data monetization opportunity in the marketplace. In this Catalyst program, we have tried to decompose the third building block, which is the platform building block. And we started thinking of this question, and we said, can we create a aggregated customer value for the ecosystem, for the subscriber, and move to a aggregated customer value rather than a singular customer journey? And that's been our broad approach as part of this Catalyst program. And in the next, say, 35 to 40 minutes, we are going to speak about all these building blocks here. So, and here, in doing that, in enriching this ecosystem, we came across and we leveraged the ecosystem playbook very extensively. And that really helped us accelerate this journey, accelerate the time to market for all these services which a CSP can bring together, and very easily bring the participants, the customer, and the CSP to monetize data. As part of this program, as part of today's presentation, we guys will actually show you how we did it, what we did, what are the challenges we faced, and importantly, what's the outcome of this ecosystem enrichment exercise using the ecosystem playbook. To demonstrate this, I'd like to call upon my colleagues, Amitabh and Rajesh. Amitabh is an IBM veteran. He is the enterprise lead architect for the region. And Rajesh, who would be presenting this segment, is an IBM master innovator. He has 38 to 40 patents on his name to his credit. So he will decompose this, and he will actually show you what we mean by an aggregated customer value as part of this customer journey. Right. With this, I pass on the stage to Rajesh. Rajesh, you would like to speak about this and how this plays out?
Sure. And thanks, Karthik, for setting this up. Thanks, Atisham. It's been a fantastic opportunity to work through this. And as Atisham correctly put this together, I just want to add one more point, if I can, Karthik, is that we think and we all experience that telco today is at a tipping point, and it's going to change tremendously. And the way we're going to have seen this change is how Karthik put this together, that we're thinking about the aggregated customer lifetime value. We're not thinking about taking a customer onto a journey for a CSP and thinking what's the next best action we can do and how we can make this experience a better experience. We have to reimagine this as a journey which will be for the entire ecosystem, and CSPs would have to play the part of enabling this through a platform. So that's where we saw data monetization ecosystem as a platform. What we have here with us is a customer journey that we have seen, and let me take the next chart, which talks about this customer journey. So think about a customer who walks in and connects with the CSP. While we are connecting and she's going through a requisition, maybe she's thinking about a prepaid new connection. While she's doing this, we have to reimagine this not as a telco's journey. Instead, what can we do as an entire ecosystem coming together and make this a better experience for the customer? So we've taken this, and we've taken this challenge, and we've put, at the point where we have got the requisition from the prospect, we've called that as a ticker. Let's say that we have 60 seconds. Now, while we have the customer with us for the next 60 seconds, how can we go orchestrate with this entire ecosystem and bring a wow factor at the end of that? So that's what this journey is about. So while we are going through, the prospect is profiling herself, she's thinking about what is it that she would want to do. What happens at the back end, the behind the scenes, is entirely different. And this is how we have to reimagine this entire telco ecosystem, if you will. The CSPs would be anonymizing this data. Once they've anonymized this data, they would be putting this anonymized data onto a marketplace. So they distribute this data onto the marketplace. While this goes on to the marketplace, there are prospects data which is available. The ecosystem players, the participants, would be listening into this and thinking, is this the right fit for me? They will be bidding, which would happen on this data, so that they can get the right value for the data. And not everything that will come through is going to be an offtake. So the ecosystem players would come in, they'll bid, and then once they've taken the data, they would be doing a complete straight through processing. So you can imagine that there is a complete after this distributed automated operatives on bids, there is a straight through processing where the ecosystem players, the participants, are thinking, what can I do to get the right fitment for of the product or the service for this customer? Okay, so that's what is happening. And then once they've done that, they aggregate this into their own product offering, and this product offering is something that they would want to send back to the CSP, who has that customer with them on the journey, right? So the CSPs get to monetize themselves, right? And I'm just going to pick up a laser and just call out some points here. So you would see that the CSPs are monetizing this data because they are enhancing the data in its value. The ecosystem participants, they listen, they bid, they get the right data, they go through the processing, and they create the offering. Once we've done that, what happens is this data is coming back to the CSP, they aggregate the data. So what was just a prepaid new connection is now a great prospect for a mobile insurance, payday insurance, a free delivery of from a florist, or a new home device. So all these ecosystem participants have actually thought that, no, this is a great prospect, and this is all happening on dedupe data, right? So they take that. Now the CSP has the advantage of having the customer on the journey. They take this data, they take all the offerings that are there, they curate it, and they identify what is the right fitment. And then they take this fitment, they give the offer. We calling this internally, when we were doing this together, we call this as the cadenza moment, right? So because as a prospect, if I was one of those prospects, I would have expected at the end of that journey, within a minute, I would have got, yes, this is your prepaid, and these are the host of prepaid connections that you can really get onto. But what I get instead is, oh yeah, we also think that you can have a paid on, and by the way, we have a free delivery from a florist who's interested, because, and you have a discount voucher for what have you.
Yeah.
So
So here, the key aspect of the journey is about value maximization, right? So
right,
if you look at this journey, how is it different from traditional journey? Traditional journey, when we talked about, it was CSPs are still trying to harvest data, still trying to get information out of it. Maybe have linkages with people, and they will do their analytics and provide offers as campaigns, things like that. The difference here is, at this point of time, we are talking about maximizing value across the entire chain, right? So it's a maximization of the value for the customer. Customer gets what's relevant. It's maximizing value for the CSPs who are able to get an open bidding, and it's maximizing the value for the partners who are able to get the relevant data on a real time bidding of in learning biddings, and get the data which is relevant to them as understood, right? So here the really where the partner playbooks comes into picture. Everybody has to collaborate in a time bound fashion for each partner in the ecosystem to maximize their value, right? This is the beauty of where the playbook comes in. So Rajesh will take you to what are the key parts of the playbook journey and what helped us in doing that. Rajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Amitabh. And Amitabh, as Amitabh called out, right, that the key here was to reimagine this entire journey from the ecosystem perspective. So while we were doing this, and we have this collaborative playbook that as the asset that we've used here. Now we did this while we were in the COVID days, and we still in, unfortunately, but we were all different. We were in different places. We had to collaborate together. We could do this together on the platform itself, and so think about it, that we had this journey, we got this journey onto the playbook, and what we were able to do is visualize each and every player of the ecosystem. What are their motives? What are the constraints? Can we think of these constraints, convert them into some kind of opportunity? So what opportunity canvas really opens up for us? Now within that opportunity canvas, what are the value props that I get? How am I going to monetize this? How am I going to retain my customer? And then we distill down to, if this utopian play has to happen, what are the capabilities which are lacking? What are those gaps, and how are we going to get to those gaps? And can we come up with a clear actionable plans? Now while we were doing this, you could imagine that the playbook allows us and does this in a very beautiful way. It is flexible, but it gives you 9 steps through which you can go through. And the beauty is that if we were to do this on ourselves, which we normally as architects keep working on, these 9 steps would have taken us probably 6 weeks to 8 weeks to decipher this business model and its engagement components. With this asset, we've been able to do this within a week, put in together. So I'm going to quickly walk you through, given the stipulation on time. I probably will delve into a couple of these steps or more, but the way we went through is we articulated the problem, then we identified what are the stakeholders, what are their roles. We looked at the constraints. So let's look at, we got data privacy, data quality, and ease of use. With these constraints, we identified data as a service is the answer. And then we thought about what is the value proposition for data as a service. We did a channel, product, and a market mapping with this to identify how we're going to make this a reality. Having done that, we moved to the next step where we started looking at the value stream. Once we looked at the value stream, we started looking at, okay, now how am I going to create value for my end customer, and how am I going to create value for everybody? As Etisham puts it together, that ecosystem is when all the participants have a win-win equation. And that's what was the guiding force here. We were thinking about how we're going to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this step and walk you through, these are the snippets that we have. And after I've gone through, I'm going to request Etisham if we can go in the actual asset, walk through the asset and show how this really works together. So what we did here is we visualized the ecosystem. Now let's look at the retention model. Now I'm going to take an example which we used while we were building this. Think of the florist. Okay, so the florist has connected with the CSP on the data marketplace. And she likes the service, she started utilizing the service. While she's doing this, she realizes that, oh, I can actually interconnect, and I can integrate with a Groupon and start giving coupons with my delivery services. So she integrates with them. She shares this experience across that, and she's really liking this. And she gets prospects while they're going through for a straight through processing as the customers are within the journey. She likes it. And she's now not only doing her own services, but she's got this expanse to integrate with a lot of other service providers and start giving all these services together, right? So that's the reason that she would want to retain herself, her association with the marketplace. And the key is the data monetization. Data monetization today is doing 600 transactions per second. It's expected to go ballistic. It's going to go till 65,000 transactions per second. It's growing at 21% CAGR. We're expecting places like Africa to do 24% CAGR on this. So this is huge. And what Playbook allowed us to do is go and experiment these business models onto the Playbook, right? So that's how we built the value stream. With the value stream, we clearly understood that this cannot work today. It needs a lot more orchestration. There are gaps, and that's what we called out as the business capabilities. We created the gaps, we identified, we distilled them down to the story level. Now, when I say story, we started thinking, if we have to really make this a play out there, what is it that we would have to do, not only from a CSP perspective. If I can put it on the marketplace, but there are no integrating players who are going to come together and give me the value, it's not going to work out. So we started thinking of this broader from CSP perspective, but end-to-end journey, and started taking into consideration them as well. Amitabh.
Yeah, kind of an empathetic view that, as we say rightly, ecosystem is about value maximization for all partners. So this framework allowed us to take an empathetic view from every participants into the system and what they gain out of it. What are the capabilities that they would want, and what is the storyline? What is that the journey for each of the participant would have that would give them the value, right? And based on that, then you would, of course, this playbook helped us prioritize these stories, and what are the technical and the non-technical capabilities that are required around it, like de-identifying data, to meet the data privacy challenges, analyzing and to expose insights, real-time analytics, machine learning to be able to identify the value of data, predict the value of data, and to make sure your bidding is happening as per the data, not only from the CSP point of view, but also from each of the participants' point of view. So the playbook actually helped us identify all of that and build it up in something that would have otherwise taken us 6 to 8 weeks almost. It helped us do that in 5 to 6 days, right? So that's the kind of time benefit that we had due to this playbook. With that, I will request Atisham if you can just take us through what some of the aspects of the playbook itself, and help us look at the assets of what the playbook offers, right? That will be great.
Okay.
Team, you are in mute. We cannot hear you. Ihtisham, you are in mute.
Atisham.
First of all, thank you very much, whoever it was who told me that I was on mute, because I had half the speech covered. Thank you so much. Okay, so thanks, Rajesh. Thanks, Amitabh. Excellent overview. Thanks, Karthik. I think it's an exciting space. I think we need to the East African episode, the MVPs that come out of that market. I think everybody, I'm very excited to see it, and I'm very glad that as a project we can be part of exploring how a complex ecosystem, the stuff you're talking about, which has a lot of technical complexity, but it also has a lot of business complexity, lots of different business models may change at spur of the moment. So you need all hands on deck approach with a lot of different entities coming into the discussion on how to put it together. So before I go into the playbook and start talking about what we achieved in the project, because, you know, obviously it's a work in progress, creating a toolkit to unbox ecosystems isn't about a few months or a few people. Lots of feedback will come through the system. There's been a few other case studies, and like I mentioned on the Catalyst, you can, on the Catalyst group page, you can watch videos of those case studies. But before I break it down for you, and I'll have to do it quickly because in the interest of time, if anybody has any questions about the case that we just discussed, the opportunity, I think we could use a couple of minutes of discussion before I start. Okay, so I'm going to then jump right in. Let me see if I can. Okay, so let's start with a small. You know, I'm just you know, this is going to be. Let's try to do this within 10 minutes. So basically, an ecosystem, like you just heard, an example of it, is a series of digital. You know, maybe a platform involving a lot of different types of digital products that's trying to solve a broader problem for a customer base, right? The solutions are broad. That means that no one partner can probably provide it. And therefore it allows for many different people to come together, usually around a platform, to solve that broader problem for its customer base and get ahead, become more competitive. That's essentially how you would define it if you were to combine a few different types of definitions. And of course, you could go on and keep defining it in more depth. Now, usually, as it happens with the platform, you can have you know, multi-sided kind of ecosystems like the one we just heard, in which you will have the street grocer to a to all types of different customers, to all types of different providers partaking in information exchange, right? So typically what this you know, the characteristic is that there's one big player. And in this case, CSPs, when we started this project, we realized that it's amazing how many of these are out there, where the CSP or the telecom operator is right in the middle of the action and is interested in or is already providing these platforms, from APIs to identity to smart home to IoT. There's a lot of these happening now with CSPs with an ambition to be the orchestrator of these projects. And so when this happens, you know, one thing that we want to always keep in mind is that these are not partnerships. We've been always doing partnerships, doing vertical integrations, but this is not what this is about, right? This is about ecosystems are about, like Karthik and others mentioned, it's about everybody wins this in some form, right? So at the end of the day, let me just mute one of our partners here. Okay, so it's about people participating on free will, where they're able to work around the platform. And I'm sorry, I'm getting some noise. I'm trying to mute, but I'm unable to do it. Okay. So, so not the linear partnerships or the linear suppliers, or not even the vertical integration, but working around the platform where people are able to provide value to the overall ecosystem and to themselves. And of course, partnership is essential and is key. And you can have lots of different, as we figured out, a lot of different characteristics of the ecosystem weigh in on the possibility of its success. So one ecosystem in one market is not necessarily going to be successful in another market, which tells you that while search is an amazing ecosystem that can be tied on the back end to advertising, you cannot just replicate that across the world.
Coding experience, user journey begins by asking PAN card without any visiting. All your details are pre-populated if previous customer for the login. This is a new sentence you have created, right?
I am going to stop here because I think we have some participants who were not on mute. If they can kindly go on mute, it'll be easier for me to finish this quickly.
Yeah, got it. Big.
Am I the only one hearing the noise?
No, even I heard it.
We are all hearing it.
We're all hearing it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So as long as you guys can hear me clearly, I'm keep going. And this is why the playbook exists. So basically the idea was that we wanted to come in and create a platform where if you are a CSP and you have a ton of partners who want to come in and play this role, how can we cut time out from thinking about this as linear partnerships and start looking at how to collaborate? So how can we create a platform where you can have linear partnerships, which will help build these? I think it's somebody named Sudhanshu Sharma.
Funds are organized in a clear manner between different fund categories. Such a functionality of fund is comprehensive.
If we can request him to mute his.
I've just did that. I texted him to mute himself. So.
Thank you. All right. So, all right, let's dive right into it. I will not take too long of your time. If you guys join I think Karthik can share a recording of the playbook with you guys on the template, and then obviously the case studies are going to be available over there as well, so you guys can see how it works. But basically there are 3 phases. So so if you're a marketer or an architect or a practitioner or someone who's looking to work, coordinate the execution of a large, platform that enables the ecosystems, this playbook is for you. So basically 3 phases that we look at in terms of a playbook would be that it's the visual.
Thereafter it will be able to help.
So you want to.
The description of the product was mentioned there, right?
So let's wait till Mr. Sharma finishes.
If I were to be, say, at the age bracket of 25, and I say that, okay, what could be my life requirement needs, then it will not be.
We see the challenges of the ecosystem playbook. Yeah, this is all ecosystem.
I'm not sure, but this is where the playbook fails.
Yeah, the playbook fails here.
Yeah. So basically, in the minutes we have before Mr. Sharma comes back on, so ideally what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to really define how every participant in the ecosystem is actually engaging with it. Who are the enablers, who come in as actors, who just get the benefits, could be customers, could be other parties, who orchestrates it and who leads it, who draws the line, who creates the regulations, who benefits the most or who doesn't, so with those rules, you want to be able to draw out how these relationships would work. And ideally, this is a collaborative exercise, dig right in, understand how the constraints are going to work, and being able to have an architectural view of this is so important, because if the tendency usually is to just hone in what's in it for me and do it very, try to start the negotiating process in terms of how this translates to the market. And usually people try to dig right in, but it's really good to take a broader view of how the ecosystem solves the problem for its customers and how it can actually scale out in that effort, and define how the characteristics of these ecosystems are actually, is it open? Can it be diverse? Can you make it competitive instead of monopolistic? And the effort in terms of understanding that you're always going to be at the start of a journey, in an ecosystem situation, you're always going to want to be, improving it over time. And this takes you to then creating the opportunity visualization. Really critical that parties come together. Like, for example, if you're the CSP, if you're the partner, if you, as a group, you want to be able to contribute to ideas around how value can be created for everyone, then you want to be able to define that opportunity. And what we've discovered is that once you start looking at ecosystems as not partnerships, where you're not just looking at your part of the deal, and you're willing to sit down with all the key stakeholders to go through this process of discovering what the overall ecosystem actually delivers in terms of value, you start really cutting out the time, a lot of the time, and a lot of the complexity from it upfront. And this is why you want to be taking a look at how the ecosystem as a single entity works, right? So we go down and we start looking at, okay, how do we model this opportunity now that we know as partners what this opportunity is for all of us? Say if it's connected car.
Hi, Etisham. Jitendra here. I have one question, if you don't mind. Is it okay to ask?
Sure, please.
Yeah. So just want to check, can this case work with other framework as well? Like, I mean, within telecom or outside telecom, so.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So this is, do you mind if I answer your question in just a little bit? Let me finish, and then I want to come back to, because this is a very good question, because the question that's being asked is how do standards play a role here? How do existing methodologies play a role? And I would just shed some light on why we did this. We didn't want to queue up with another way of doing things, right? This is just how it works on the side, how this is more of a converging activity, a collaborative activity, rather than a descriptive or a prescriptive activity. This is what you should do. No, it's not this is what you should do. This is more about how together you can look at what you do as a single entity, as an important single activity that you must do. So very, very interesting, some of the observations that we came up with. Okay, so I'll come back to Jitendra. I'll come back to your answer in just a minute. So within the modeling opportunity, the context, so basically some obvious things. For example, now that you've defined who your enablers and orchestrators are, you want to actually define exactly what's in it for them, right? You want to talk about why are they there, right? And this is so important because this is not about you as a CSP or as a partner. It's about everybody, right? Why is the customer there in the first place? And pretty soon we'll talk about how to actually, use that to map capabilities for the whole ecosystem. Then you want to talk about how this ecosystem actually acquires customers. And one of the things that we do is that we basically wanted to model around growth. Everything about ecosystems, about digital platforms is growth, right? How do you plan for growth? Typically, architects are looking at these value streams where they're taking a historic view of the organization. And so this is a dud, it's starting from a bad place because you're trying to improve on something. But what you should be doing is looking at a global phenomena of how growth happens. How do we acquire customers? What kind of different approaches? What are the loops in which a self-sustaining acquisition model works, right? So it can go from all very complex, content generated loop to a simple sales driven loops. And all of that you have to decide as a group of companies involved in a single ecosystem, where do you lie on the acquisition model? Similarly, you do the same thing with monetization. You go in and you talk about the economics of this ecosystem. How do you look at the unit economics and see the impact on organizations internally within the participants to see if this is going to impact the overall structure of this organization? Is this going to be an independent organization? Is this going to be run by the existing divisions within the company? How does this structure actually help you look at the monetization of this particular service or the platform that you're talking about? How does that impact the overall ecosystem? And then from there, the selections that you make on the loops, you go in and you talk about the ecosystem, right? So the retention of customers within the ecosystem. Now this goes two ways, right? One is that, okay, so there's customers that this ecosystem attracts at many different levels, B2B, B2C, but then there are also internal participants, the ecosystem participants, and retention is a key core attribute to looking at the sustainability of the solution within the ecosystem. And part of doing this is to understand how value is created for the people involved in the ecosystem. So are the customers getting good value proposition, or does their value proposition need to change? Over here, if you're making high impact and there's relatively low time to value, you're in good place, right? So you need to be on the left half of this 2x2, and within that you want to be in the good value fit. So if you're not there, why are you not there? We would like to know why you're not there so that we can start mapping capabilities that will help you get there. It's this kind of thinking that, together with the partners within an ecosystem, until they work together, you're not going to be able to get those answers. You cannot sit and empathize for someone else. You're going to have to bring everybody on the table. So what you get in the end is an opportunity canvas from these exercises, where you have a whole bunch of loops, but you also have these gaps in value propositions that you must now map to when it comes to capabilities. And this is the last phase of the playbook, where it talks about how you can actually map capabilities. You can extract these feature stories from these capabilities, and then you can update the portfolio so that all the players are visually working together on these capabilities to, for example, deliver the value. So just to give you an example of how something like this works, in a situation like this, you break your loop into a linear mapping table, and you look at a customer capability, or a business capability, which is then divided into everybody who's participating, impacted by that capability, in terms of a top-down model, where you talk about what do you need to do in order for that capability to exist. So in this case, when you're looking at a campaign and funnel management as a capability, Orchestrator, for example, has tasks related to placing ads, and enablers might be running campaigns, whereas customers might be learning from it. So making those connections together defines that capability at a top-down level. But then on the bottom-up level, you start defining what features you need to introduce as a group to make those capabilities come to life, and what kind of enabling tools you need. And within these enabling tools, you have a bit of an answer to this question, is to understand what kind of frameworks, external frameworks or industry standards, do you need to use. For example, you may be using this feature story and then pointing it to a ETOM framework for the TM forum, where you are talking about a particular process that needs to be customized for your organization in order to meet it. But then at the same time, you're also looking at your partners and what are the different other stakeholders, what are their needs with respect to this capability. So a two-dimensional mapping table allows you to create these automations. Now, remember, we also used CurateFX, which is the standard kind of a tool that brings it all, sort of create the connections. And here, all these tasks that the feature stories that we collected are available, where we can actually see how these platforms are impacted, how these feature stories are impacted in terms of what are they. You can just go and expand on these, try to hook them up with the standards, like in this case, TM Forum's capability model. And so there's that's where basically what this project was about, to help come up with opportunities, create modeling for the future growth for each partner, their roles, examining the value propositions, and then creating the capability gaps for those value propositions, and then of course tying them up to standards and bringing those blueprints out so that everybody can contribute, and then everybody can actually take off from there. So once you have for example, a Kanban like this, in which you decide to prioritize and engineer some of these solutions, you can probably move them to design, you can move them to do it later, you can decide to use these to develop cost structures and business cases, which is something that we're doing as part of the evolution in the phase 2 of this project. And so that's just a wrap. I think we're The point was to give you an idea of how some of these activities are shaping up within the ecosystem playbook. So with that, I would like to open the floor for questions. To start by answering Jatinder's question, the key thing is this. You want to understand how a platform is going to create an ecosystem of opportunities, and how does that look for your market. And to do this, you need your partners. And your partners, if you have partners in mind, when you sit down, this playbook comes handy at that time. This is when you can all come together, save time, look at existing ecosystems, map them, or start new and try to project something on to the playbook to get ideas, to get direction, to save time, and to get to what it needs to, what it takes to actually make the ecosystem work in your market. And that's your starting point. So with that baseline, you'd have a head start, hopefully, to do a lot of different things with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Atisham. That was good. Dear attendees, any questions from your end? We'd be more than happy to take.
Yeah, this is Abhay, and this is really very interesting and couple of relevant opportunity I can foresee. Like we have been working with ICICI as well as HDFC Life, where they're trying to do similar thing in terms of the broader ecosystem integration. ICICI has been using some of the IBM product stack, including the API management and the cloud packs. But this is a bigger discussion in terms of how do you really build the platform. That's one part, extending to the other industry like banking and insurance. This is pretty much in play. The second point I wanted to make is I will be very interested to understand what is the underlying cloud and data services that would be required. Data services are not really the AI ML part. I come from cloud application services stream, so I would like to understand what capability would be required to build such kind of capability, so that I can go back and discuss with my team.
Perfect.
Rajesh, do you want to take that? I think Abhay's question can be addressed by Rajesh.
Yeah, let me do that. So here, Abhay, thanks for asking this question. So when it comes to if do we have the data APIs, and what is the data API that we require to make data monetization a possibility? There's a host of things that we had gone through. So while we were working through the business, this particular business case of data monetization ecosystem, we looked at what. So there are three, and I'll keep it brief, and we can take this probably larger. Data per se as a service would have three parts to it. Number one, the raw data itself. Second is putting the APIs in such a way that it can be anonymized and put forth along with some interpretation on the top of it. So you need to do the scrubbing. You need to identify. You can work through the frequency modeling of it, understanding when and how you want to get the data. And the third aspect is that when you're doing this, can you also do it along with the categorization? Okay, so when for example, if someone is coming and we are looking at a categorization of the ARPU or a regional view, then that kind of categorization can be done, and APIs have been created in a way so that all this information can be built into the entire marketplace. So when the ecosystem players and the participants get into it, they would be able to understand and pick up the data exactly in the way they want. And we talked about the DAO, right? The distributed automated operatives for bidding. This is how the DAO has been set forth. There are cases in which we were thinking about how you can set up a blockchain and create autonomous contracts which are going to look through this data, sniff through the data, put an aggregated value on it, and then start doing a bidding automation on the top of that. So the API framework doesn't necessarily have to only look at how the data is going to be exposed. It also has to think about when the data is exposed, how we're going to create a bidding mechanism, how we're going to create an articulation mechanism, and then the offtake on the top of that. So that's how we were thinking now. From a playbook standpoint, we identified these, and then we started looking at how we can create this as a capabilities, and we stopped at that story point saying that this is the capability that we would have to work through. So Abhay, does that explain
Yeah.
how you want to take this on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rajesh, I'll connect with you offline because there are other, kind of near real time data integration we are talking about, so that you get that near real time view what you want to. So I'll connect you with you offline, and moreover, from the cloud platform perspective, what are the capabilities you need so that we can explore
To
together.
create the data marketplace. Absolutely, would be a pleasure. Thank you.
So one of the things that you want to do is to have your value streams or your journeys that Rajesh introduced you to a partner journey, and sometimes you have a customer journey, sometimes you have an operational journey. You can use your value streams or journeys to then map what everybody needs to do, right? So what does a telco need to do? Let's say it's an edge network that they need to deploy in order to achieve something. There's some APIs, there's some architectural elements. Now, from a business capability perspective, it's really important to have those scenarios nailed down, right? Top down and bottom up, so that you can have these scenarios then point to some of these enablers that you can then expand like Rajesh did, and you can then they can point to prioritization of some sort, whether you want to do an MVP, whether you want to point to a new innovative outcome that you're waiting for in order for this to kick off. But at the end of the day, if someone wants to come back and see where we are on it, or what does it mean for me, or a new partner wants to join in, this is the blueprint that they can actually use, because at the apex of everything, architecturally, you need to be able to see what's in it for me, or how does this pan out for everyone.
Sure, Adisha, that's perfect. There's one more question which Sai has asked. Sai Sampath has asked, saying, how can we bring in social media based scenarios on a dynamic playbook approach? Rajesh, Amitabh.
Maybe I'll start. Amitabh, you can help me here. So Sai, this is a great question, because what you are thinking of is, if we are going to look at social media, and based on social media, based on social media, can the playbook be leveraged for creating that kind of aggregated model? Answer is to that is yes. So the why am I jumping to the yes so quickly is because when we were looking at this and we thought about, we didn't necessarily look at the social media when we were building our case. But if we look at the social media, which is the big data kind of opportunity, you can imagine that how are you going to take that and create capabilities. What this playbook will allow us to do is to exactly take it down, look at how it is going to be monetized, how it is going to be retained, and create the business capabilities, gaps, and requirement scenarios on the top of that. So the short answer to that is, if we go through that journey and if we can clearly articulate the journey of how the social media based devices or services can be bundled up, we can certainly leverage this to build that. Amitabh, I think you're on mute, Amitabh.
Yeah, yes. Thanks for pointing that out, Rajesh. So Rajesh already said that social media is actually a very good starting point for this. So if you look at social media, what's happening in Peru, like WhatsApp SIM, or what was being launched in India, like the Facebook's initiative of free free internet for social media, right? These are all about, again, building an ecosystem and working on a model that leverages everybody. So social media is perhaps one of the early points where you will see the ecosystems being built, partners being participating for value maximization. Everybody is equal, right? So wherever we have that kind of an environment where there are multiple collaborating parties, collaboration through social media gives you a much wider collaboration, providing services. This playbook would actually have a very important role to play, because this is where the value of this is actually it brings the whole goes beyond a traditional partnership approach that I am or a customer vendor approach, and brings into a scenario where everybody is collaborating to maximize the value, right? And it in an open collaboration platform. So I believe, yeah, for a social media based use case, this or a business case, this is a perfect tool to start your ecosystem analysis. Right.
Does that answer your question, Sai? Yeah. Okay.
Sai is not able to connect.
Yeah. Nice. So it's a very valid point. Actually, the social media thing really opens out so many new, new dimensions. It's something which we need to, any CSP needs to adopt, very quickly.
Yeah, so I think that to some of the size question, I think the point in the playbook is that, look, like Rajesh mentioned also, if you're looking at, like, let's say social media or chat apps or third-party digital platforms that interact with your own platform and your own ecosystem, this playbook is actually a point of elaboration for those, right? So you want to see how in your acquisition, for example, what loops will WhatsApp create, right? So how would WhatsApp loop into acquisition? How would WhatsApp loop into monetization? Those use cases are blown up into these loops of automation, because social really helps you create these loops. It's not a linear funnel, right? So that's exactly what we aimed when we wanted architects and marketers to sit together, technology and business to sit together and decide how they're going to create those loops of growth, so that you can then start seeing what you need to do, what capabilities you need to. For example, you want to be a partner with WhatsApp, or does everybody want to be a partner with WhatsApp? How do you hand off from one partner to the other when it comes to WhatsApp or when it comes to other platforms in social? So creating that strategy together in a self-sustaining loop for growth, whether it's acquisition, whether it's monetization, whether it's retention. Great idea to do something collaborative like this.
I agree. Yeah.
Cool. I think we've already kind of went over, so I want to thank all of you for the interest and the time that you spent on working with the playbook and creating a case study out of it. And I think users and participants today have learned a lot from this discussion, hopefully, and we'd love to continue to hear from you guys. Thank you very much from my side.
Just one quick question. Can this DAIC recording be shared?
Of course. It will be shared, and if you join the group, it'll be posted there as well for all times to come. And obviously you can reach out to Karthik and take that recording.
Sure.
Part of it might be missing at the top, but because we were able to start it a bit late, but most of it is there.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks for all in attendance. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Atisha. And all.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks, the IBM team, the attendants, participants from the Catalyst project, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here today.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.